you are a front-end engineer nowadays. What do you prefer in front-end development compared to back-end development, which you also did at some point, right?
Yeah, I actually started out as a back-end developer and super hated the front end because when you come from a really structured language like Java, JavaScript sort of just feels like the Wild West, where like it just really easily lets you shoot yourself in the foot.
Welcome to the first episode of Career Path. Today I'm here with Danielle Richter. She was born in 1993 in the state of California in the United States. She studied a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics with a minor of Computer Science at the Midwestern State University, Texas, and graduated in 2013. She started working shortly after as a software engineer in Oregon. In 2019, she moved to the Netherlands to start working at Picnic, a Dutch online supermarket headquartered in Amsterdam. She's working as a front-end engineer, working on the UI applications of Picnic's new automated warehouses. That's where we got to know each other, since we have been working on the same team within the company ever since. She has been very active back in the United States with organizing Chick Tech, which is a non-profit organization whose goal it is to engage people of marginalized genders of all ages in the technology industry. Hey, welcome Danielle. First of all, thanks a lot for taking the time to do this first episode here of Career Path together with me. It's nice that you took some time.
Thanks for having me.
Right, let's get going right away. So since you originally studied mathematics with a minor of computer science, as we heard in the introduction, do you remember like the first moment or moments where you considered starting a career in software development?
Yeah. So I was taking computer science 1 and 2 was required for my degree. So I was taking those and just really enjoying them like a lot more than my math classes. I had never, beyond like editing my MySpace layout, I had never done any sort of programming and had never even considered it. So I just kept taking the classes because I thought they were fun. Even though they weren't required for my degree. And at some point I realized that I would really like to switch to be a computer science major, but I was too close to the end of the degree. So I just finished up and thought I would see if anyone would hire me to work as a software engineer, which I didn't think that they would without a computer science degree. Luckily I was wrong.
That does make me wonder though, did you ever consider going with a mathematics focused career instead?
My original plan was to be a high school teacher, actually. Right. I really enjoyed tutoring math. And at some point I realized that tutoring and teaching are not at all the same thing, and that I don't think I would have enjoyed teaching. Okay,
that's interesting. Do you think like nowadays you still have the same opinion? So, or would you think that in the long run you would enjoy teaching or something, some form of education? You know, like there's a lot of camps and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not a teacher. Teachers should be paid like $1 million a year and they're not. And I just don't think I have the energy or the patience for it, honestly.
No, I mean, that's fair enough. So as I mentioned in the beginning, you are a front-end engineer nowadays. What do you prefer in front-end development compared to back-end development, which you also did at some point, right?
Yeah, I actually started out as a back-end developer and super hated the front end because when you come from a really structured language like Java, JavaScript sort of just feels like the Wild West, where like it just really easily lets you shoot yourself in the foot. And there was not a moment that I like chose it. I sort of got forced into it, where I was on a team that like I knew a little bit and everyone else knew nothing because the people that knew something left. So then I became just like de facto the owner of the Angular project and just had to learn to like it slowly. Fair enough.
But nowadays, I mean, it's a conscious decision to do front-end development, I guess. So in the language that you program most in, which then I guess is TypeScript or JavaScript, what is a feature or characteristic that you hate the most actually?
Ooh, that I hate the most. It's funny because my original hatred of it being the Wild West is kind of what I like about it now. That when I try to do Java, I feel very like constrained and I don't like it. I'm like, what do you mean I can't just make this be whatever type I want? Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
What do I hate about it? Oh my gosh, what a good question. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that I really hate about it.
No?
Nothing jumps out at me that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's good. Maybe a testament to the language. So you're using TypeScript most of the time?
Yes.
Right. Interesting. So I did mention, and I mean that's for you personally, I guess, very important. You moved from the United States to Europe, Netherlands to be specific, which obviously is quite a big step to take. What would you say for you was like the hardest thing about leaving your home country?
I think just being in a new place and not knowing a lot of the norms. Like, you just feel kind of stupid all the time for a while. Like, even the smallest things, like walking into the grocery store and then not being able to get back out.
Is that a thing in the United States that you can just walk out?
Yeah, it's just a big open empty door, like when you walk into like Hema or something. That's what all the grocery stores are like. So I would walk in to see if they had something and then be like, oh, I can't get out of here. And I would just buy like Milka chocolate bars because like I don't know how else to get out. I'm told you can leave without buying something, but I just haven't. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I've been in a situation before, but of course, yeah, it's quite yeah. All the supermarkets are like this here, so it's interesting.
Just general like not knowing what to do when you walk into a restaurant, or like I still don't know how to work the toaster at picnic. It looks really intimidating.
Nice. Well, that's at least then. I think that's good to hear that it's nothing like. I mean, that's all like small issues, right? Yeah. It's nothing
huge, just all small things.
That's good. What would you say are like the qualities that you prefer in Europe, or maybe more specifically the Netherlands, if there's anything, over the United States?
There's a lot more like work-life balance sort of culture. So like if you're not feeling well, you're encouraged to take the day off and rest. And I have a lot of like deep-seated American guilt around that is like, it's hard for me to do, but it's like so encouraged here. And even stuff with like mental health seems more like embraced and encouraged here. And then just like taking vacation in general. In the US, you don't get a lot of it. It just really depends on how much the company wants to give you. There's no mandated leave.
Yeah, I see.
So it's nice that they like encourage it more.
I think that's a good point. Then I want to ask though, is there surely something that also you like the other way around more at home?
Yeah, I miss a lot of the food.
Yeah, that's
and just like the US is something about it, like there's just so many choices for everything that you do, that like if you want to buy something, there's a billion flavors for it, and I kind of miss that sometimes.
Yeah, that's. I heard that
capitalism, maybe, I don't know.
I heard it a couple of times from other Americans, so that seems to be a common theme. Let's move to the Chick Tech, which I mentioned in the intro. What exactly is it, and what were you doing there?
Yeah, Chick Tech is a nonprofit whose aim is to get more girls and women into technology, and then once they get there, to keep them there. So it started out as a program for high school students. And one of the things I thought was cool about it originally is that they have teachers nominate girls that have maybe not already self-selected into technology, but like have the aptitude to do well. And then those girls get like a invitation. It's like, hey, we think you'd have fun at this program. Like, please come join us. And it's totally free for the girls. And they get the big event is like a big kickoff. And they get all of them. I think there's like 100 something per cohort, and they come to Portland State University. At least in Portland, there's chapters all over the U.S. And there's like 8 different workshops that they can like get moved between. So they spend the weekend doing some cool workshop, and then there's monthly workshops after that. And so I usually taught a JavaScript one at the kickoff, but there were ones like drones and 3D printing, and like they'd go tour tech companies and stuff. And so the goal is not to make them like tech experts, but just to get them like excited and interested in it. And a decent amount of them go on to major in some form of STEM.
Really cool. Yeah, sounds nice. I then though, how did you find it, like yourself?
Sort of really a little bit by chance. So when I wanted to start in software, my mom, who is just a wonderful person, wanted to help me. And so she asked around. She had like a coworker whose ex-boyfriend was an engineer or something, and we set up a meeting with him. And so we went to like a restaurant and met him, and he brought 2 other people that he knew, one of whom was an engineering manager, and the other was a woman named Janice, who is the founder of Chick Tech. And so she told me about it then, and I thought it was really cool because I was one of like 3 girls in my computer science classes. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. I'd like to get more involved with that. And then once I moved to Portland, it just so happened that the company I was working for, my manager also was like sort of interested in some Chick Tech stuff. So I kind of got involved.
Nice. I think it's a because we didn't talk about this a lot beforehand. I think sounds really nice and very vast in terms of offerings, I have to say. Like there's a lot of stuff going on that you mentioned.
Yeah, they also do career level events for women in tech, because there's also a problem where it's not just a pipeline, women also leave tech in huge numbers. So there's like meetups and conferences and stuff to like build a network and support each other. And there was also, at least in Portland, I don't think this ever ended up in any other cities, but I organized a middle school camp for a few years as well, which is ages like 12 through 14.
Nice. I think really important that this exists, and since it's non-profit, I'll leave a link in the description for everyone that wants to check it out. Would be nice. Let's stay at the topic, since you already touched a bit upon it in the last thing you actually said. So the gender gap in technology sector is still pretty large compared to other sectors. It differs a bit per country, but in the United States and Western Europe, where we are situated, only about like 15 to 20% of all computer science graduates are women. This number is substantially lower even compared to other STEM subjects, right? So do you think that early education and the universities themselves should change something to even this out in the future? And if so, what should it be?
Yeah, I think it's like a couple things. And one of them is that I think a lot of girls just don't know about the field, or like don't envision themselves in it. Like I never actively was like, oh, I can't be an engineer, but I just never thought about it. Like it just was not presented to me as a career path that I ever considered. Like just not something you think about, or not like a thing you see like represented like on TV or like in media or whatever. And I think they're starting to change that. Like I think there was even like a computer engineer Barbie and like some more stuff like that. So I think they're like moving in the right direction, and there's more code in school than there was before. So I think like awareness is definitely part of it. The other part is definitely culture. Like I've heard stories of women who work in tech now that were like actually interested early in college, like walked into her first computer science class and the professor said, oh, art class is down the hall. And she just went, oh, cool, bye. And then like didn't come back to tech for years.
I mean, that's just sad. But,
and there's a lot of people with stories like that, or like even the culture of the classes themselves, not necessarily the professors.
Yeah, I can sadly see that that it's even if all the professors would adapt over time, which I guess it's improving at least a bit. You'll have some students that might be very gatekeepy about it, or whatever you would call this. Gatekeepery. Yeah,
because you'll notice like in my first CS classes, a lot of the guys in there were very like, well, I've already been programming on my home computer for whatever, and I'd never ever seen code in my life besides, like I said, the HTML I did in MySpace. So like, it made me feel sort of behind already. And I've heard from other people that that's another like sort of early computer science class experience.
It's a weird thing that while I mean, I for instance also enjoy coding in my free time, but it's a weird thing indeed that in our sector it's so it's like, at least by some people, expected to a point, which is kind of stupid, because I mean in other sectors, I don't know, like a doctor or something, they're not gonna perform some surgery as a hobby, you know what I mean? It's like weirdly established, and I mean I do enjoy it as a hobby, but I totally understand that if someone like after 8 hours of coding as a like income source or whatever, they're like, well, I'm done with this today.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody expects accountants to just like crunch numbers in their spare time.
Yeah, exactly.
What are your side project accounting things?
Would be a bit weird.
Yeah.
Then since you, it's at least from one thing to another here, with my questions, really nice. In your own opinion, what would you say is the main roadblock for women in tech after they already entered the job market? You did touch upon it a bit.
I think it's, again, culture. I think it's something like 7 years that like some huge percentage, like 50% of women leave tech after 7 years, or I don't remember the exact statistic, but it's a lot. And I think it's definitely like culture of like some tech companies are very like bro-y, or that whole like foosball and ping pong and like beer drinking, which is like fun when you're in your 20s, but then as women get to an age where they want to like have families, like this mandated beer drinking time in the evening, or like even a lot of connections to advance in your career are made in those like beer drinking fun times. Yeah. And so then they lose out on these like promotions, and then they get farther and farther behind, and then they're like, why am I even here in this like sort of toxic culture? And I think they just leave.
Yeah. I can definitely see what you're saying. Is there something, would you say, that if you can pinpoint it, right? Is there something that is like a first good step, would you say, for a company that sees itself a bit in what you described? Because I think it's very common.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just like making sure that there's activities that are not just like bro-y beer drinking after work, and like there are opportunities for women to have these networking like during the day where they don't have to take time away from kids, because women are usually statistically primary caregivers and like the ones running the household, so they can't stay all night drinking beer with their coworkers.
No, I mean, it should also not be expected by anyone regardless of gender, really, but yeah.
Exactly.
I see your point is a good one. I know that you're also involved in your current company, or our current company, in well, this whole topic. What are you doing there?
Yeah, we have. So it started out when I first joined Picnic. There's like a SysDev girls channel that we sort of like. There's not really like a process around it. It was very
channel, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Just a Slack channel. Very like informal. Like people were just added to it, and it was really not very active. Like it would usually be like, hey, does anybody have like a hair tie, or like stuff like that, or just like, I don't know, random little things.
Informal, yeah.
Yeah. And then a couple of us during Corona, or maybe right before it, decided like, okay, there's enough of us now that there's a bunch of people in here that I don't know anymore, and it would be cool for us to like have a community together for that same reason of like Chick Tech, just having the like support, because a lot of us, I'm actually not, but a lot of women are the only woman on their team. So nice to know some of the others in the company. So we started organizing little like, almost like lunch and learn style, and trying to alternate like technical and like soft skills. So we do like, somebody would give a presentation about her thesis that she had just done, and then we would talk about like imposter syndrome and stuff like that. And we're trying to grow it into something a little more formal right now, but that's still kind of a work in progress.
Yeah.
Situation.
No, I think that's a nice that's a nice activity. Did you ever notice any differences in terms of gender gap in our sector between your home country, the United States, and the Netherlands?
I think it's about the same, really.
It's about the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a short and apt answer. Right, to round this first episode off, what I want to do, and everyone, is like sort of a rapid fire round or whatever at the end. So I'll ask you a bunch of questions now, which I'd like to ask you to respond to with, I don't know, a short sentence, a single word, even if it fits, something like that. Is that fine?
Fun, okay.
Cool, let's go. Which programming language did you write your first line of code in?
C++.
That's actually quite interesting, given that what we talked about. So, nice. Which operating system do you prefer to use?
Mac.
Music for coding or not?
Yes. But it has to be music that I know pretty well, so that I can tune it out, if that makes sense. I can't like listen to new music.
Because then you focus too much on what's going on because you've never heard of it before?
Yeah, unless it's like something that I don't have to think deeply about, like, you know, if you're like, I have to crank out some unit tests real quick, and then it's like, I don't know, I'll listen to Tupac or something, like it doesn't matter. But if I'm like really thinking, I've been listening to the same Taylor Swift album for like a year.
Well, if it works.
Yeah.
It's also to get your mind off of the stuff a bit.
Yeah, also to block out noise.
Fair enough. So what's a technology that you'd like to pick up if you'd find the time?
React. It feels like the front end world is moving towards it and less Angular, and I am afraid of getting left behind.
Fair enough. What's a technology that you wouldn't like to be forced to work with, either because past experiences or you heard something about it?
Ruby on Rails. My last job, all of our legacy stuff was in Ruby, and I found it just impossible to do anything with because it's very magical. Like convention over configuration, I think, is their whole thing, and I could never figure out why anything was happening or what was going on.
That is certainly something that Rails is popular for, I think. Which IDE or editor do you typically work with?
Visual Studio Code.
What's the keyboard shortcut that you use the single most often, apart from the usual suspects?
I think it's like Option, like arrow key, just to navigate like text.
Like within one line?
Is all I can think of, yeah.
Yeah, no, very
or like
important.
go back and forth for another line. Like I get really cranky when programs don't support it.
What is your biggest hobby?
Baking.
What are you usually baking?
Cookies. They're the most easy to share and easier and more fun than something like cake.
Okay, that's fair enough. What cookie flavor is your favorite to eat or produce? Not sure if it's the same one.
Oh my gosh. My most, I don't want to say popular cookies. That makes it sound like I'm a bakery. But there's these brown butter sugar cookies that every time I make them are a huge hit, and they're really delicious.
Yeah, I mean, I knew before that you're very much into baking, and I can vouch for it being very yummy. So
thank you.
Sounds good.
Shout out to sallysbakingaddiction.com.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, she's gone.
Which tool can you not work without that is not your IDE or editor?
The best I can think of is that I've been using a Mac app called Palmy. That every 20 minutes will gray out the screen and tell me to look away for 25 seconds so that my eyes don't want to fall out of my head at the end of the day.
Is this like a Pomodoro timer?
It's supposed to be, but there's no break time built in. So as a poor Pomodoro timer, it sort of sucks, but as like an eye-saving tool, it's great.
Well, good to hear. That's a good one. I think this Pomodoro timers I know many people use, and this one sounds really helpful as well, I have to say.
Yeah.
What is your single most favorite vacation destination in the past?
I can't decide between...
A top three or whatever is also fine.
Vietnam, Hawaii, and Greece are all sort of tied currently.
Right. I won't ask then why, because otherwise this probably takes a bit more explanation if you cannot even decide on a single one.
They're just all really beautiful and all had great food.
Well, that's actually a nice common thing then. Nice. So I didn't mention it in the beginning, I think, but most of your life you spent in Oregon, or also were raised there. So what would you say is the best thing to do or visit when in Oregon, United States?
Yeah. I spent a lot of time perfecting my tourist itinerary for when people came to visit from Texas. I just always wanted to show them like the best parts of Oregon. And my favorite place in Oregon that I think is the most beautiful is like 45 minutes outside Portland is this big waterfall called Multnomah Falls. And then just another like 30 minutes past that is a little town called Hood River that's in the Columbia River Gorge, which is really beautiful to drive through. And then near Mount Hood, Hood River. And there's like this huge loop of fruit farms, and you can buy like jam and pies and stuff. And it's just really beautiful. It's the mountain I have on my arm.
Nice. Right. Let's come to one final question that I would always like to ask every guest on this series. What would you say, from your own perspective, is like the one single most important piece of advice that you can give to some group of people within tech for their careers?
Yeah. I think just for anyone starting out, my best advice would be to not be intimidated by those people that sort of live and breathe code and do it all the time. You're not a worse developer if you don't do that and you want to have other hobbies in your spare time. So just don't be intimidated by those people. You're just as good as they are.
Right. So that's were all my questions. Thank you so much for taking time again to do this first episode here with me, and that we could shoot this. I think it was wonderful. I had a lot of fun, and
me too.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. Nice. What is your biggest hobby?
This is okay.
Yeah, sure. Well, then we should just know that I can cut it nicely.